Rejection has a sound. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's the slow fading of messages, the sudden shift in tone, the half-hearted replies that tell you more than any direct words could. And then, one day, it's final. They don't choose you. They don't want you in the way you wanted them. And for a moment, it feels like the world has paused, just to let the sting sink in deeper. Your first instinct might be to respond, to explain, to prove that they've made a mistake, to remind them of everything you brought into their life. You want to show them that walking away from you is walking away from something they'll never find again. But then, something inside stops you. Something whispers, "No, not this time." You choose silence. And that silence, though it feels heavy in your chest, begins to speak in ways your words never could. Because when someone expects you to beg for their attention and you don't, it forces them to face something they weren't prepared for, the reality that they weren't as important to you as they assumed, or maybe worse, the realization that they underestimated your ability to live without them. At first, they might feel relief. They might believe they've made the right decision, that you'll fade quietly out of their life and leave no mark. But the human mind is rarely that simple. Sooner or later, their thoughts start to wander. What are you doing now? Who are you talking to? Are you thinking about them at all? And the very silence that gave them peace in the beginning becomes the echo that keeps them up at night. It's not about revenge, it's about discipline. Because your silence isn't an act of spite, it's an act of self-respect. It's your way of saying, "I heard your answer, and I accept it. But I won't let your choice define my worth." That's what Stoicism teaches. That you cannot control what someone else chooses, but you can control how you respond. And nothing is more powerful than responding with calm, unshaken stillness. This is where most people break. They can't handle the emptiness that rejection leaves behind, so they rush to fill it with apologies, with explanations, with desperate attempts to change the other person's mind. But silence is where strength is forged. It's where you show yourself that you can stand in the discomfort without trying to escape it. And as days turn into weeks, you'll notice something shifting. Not in them, at least not at first, but in you. The sharpness of the rejection softens. The need for their validation fades. You start to see that their decision was not the end of your story, but simply a page turned. And when they realize they can't read the next chapter without you, they'll start to feel the weight of the very choice they made. Silence after rejection has a strange way of reversing the roles. At first, you're the one feeling the loss, the confusion, the ache of being set aside. But over time, that silence starts to work like a mirror, reflecting their own choices back at them. They start to see the gaps your absence leaves behind. The jokes they used to share with you now fall flat with others. The conversations don't feel as natural. The comfort they once took for granted is no longer there. They might not admit it out loud, but their mind begins to wander back to the moments you were present. And because you aren't reaching out, every detail starts to grow in importance. The sound of your voice, the way you understood them without explanation, the little things you did that no one else noticed. When these memories come in waves, they realize there's no way to recreate them with someone new. What unsettles them the most isn't that you've gone silent, it's that you've stayed silent. They expected you to push back, to fight for a place in their life, to remind them that losing you was a mistake. But when you don't, they're left with only their own thoughts. And in that quiet, those thoughts get louder and louder. That's the thing about rejection. It feels final in the moment, but it often plants a seed of doubt in the mind of the one doing the rejecting. They may have been certain when they turned you away, but certainty has a short lifespan when faced with the reality of absence. And your silence is the environment where that doubt grows the fastest. For you, this is where discipline becomes essential. It's tempting to break the silence when you start to feel their curiosity again. You'll sense it in small ways, a subtle like on an old post, a random message asking how you've been. These little signals are not always about wanting you back. They're about easing their own discomfort. And if you've learned anything from Stoicism, it's that your actions should be guided by principle, not by someone else's sudden change in mood. So you hold your ground. You continue living as if they were never the center of your world, because they no longer are. You focus on building, learning, improving, on becoming someone who no longer needs the approval they once withheld. And without even meaning to, your silence becomes your greatest form of expression. The irony is, the more you focus on yourself, the more they feel the space you've left behind. Because they're not just missing you, they're missing the version of themselves they could be when they were around you. That's the part they can't replace. And that's the part your silence keeps alive in their mind. There will come a point when their curiosity turns into discomfort. At first, they might try to convince themselves they don't care, that your absence doesn't affect them. They'll tell themselves the rejection was the right choice, that they're better off without you. But the mind is tricky. It remembers the truth, no matter how much you try to rewrite it. And the truth is, people don't forget the ones who made them feel understood. They don't forget the ones who brought calm in their chaos. They don't forget the ones who saw them at their worst and still stayed. That's why your silence begins to work against them in ways you'll never have to say out loud. Because the more you refrain from chasing, the more they start to realize what they've lost. This is where the real strength of Stoicism comes in. It's not about pretending you're unaffected. It's about feeling everything, but refusing to let those feelings dictate your actions. You've accepted their choice without resentment, and in doing so, you've taken back the power they thought rejection would strip from you. They expected an ending. What they didn't expect was your transformation. They thought rejection would break you, but instead it refined you. You've stopped looking for answers in their words and started finding them in your own growth. You've stopped waiting for them to open the door again and started walking through new ones on your own. And here's the quiet truth. They notice, even if they never admit it. They see you moving differently, speaking differently, carrying yourself with a kind of unshakable calm that wasn't there before. They start to realize that rejecting you didn't diminish your value. It only freed you to discover it without them. The weight of that realization is heavier than you think. Because while you've been busy building a life where their opinion no longer matters, they've been stuck wondering if they misjudged you. They begin to see that maybe their rejection wasn't a reflection of your worth at all, but a reflection of their inability to recognize it. And the more they dwell on that, the more your silence cuts deeper than any words could. Not because it's cruel, but because it's honest, because it shows them, without saying a thing, that you were never going to beg to be chosen. You were going to choose yourself instead. Eventually, the silence becomes too loud for them to ignore. They start to realize that while they made the choice to walk away, you made the choice to let them. And in that choice, you showed them something they didn't expect. You don't need them to complete you. You never did. That's the part that unsettles them the most. Because deep down, everyone wants to believe they are irreplaceable in the lives they leave. Your stillness challenges that belief. It forces them to consider the possibility that their absence didn't destroy you, it liberated you. By then, your life has already moved forward. The nights that once felt endless are now filled with purpose. The spaces they used to occupy are now occupied by growth, new experiences, and the peace that comes from no longer trying to force someone to stay. You're no longer waiting for an apology, for closure, or for them to suddenly wake up and understand your worth. You already know it, and if they come back, it won't be to the same person they left, because the silence changed you. It made you see that rejection isn't the end. It's the removal of what was never meant to stay. It's the clearing of a path for something better, someone better, or simply a stronger version of yourself. That's the essence of Stoicism. Not letting the choices of others dictate your sense of peace. Accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. And finding strength in the quiet, even when the quiet feels heavy. So let them wrestle with their thoughts. Let them replay the moments they dismissed. Let them wonder why the one they rejected never came running back. Your silence is not an act of cruelty. It's an act of self-preservation. And in the end, it speaks louder than any words ever could. Because the greatest response to rejection isn't anger. It isn't revenge. It's building a life so steady, so full, that their absence feels like nothing more than a closed chapter in a story you've already outgrown.